Welcome to this special show, and this show is about a new course that IILM is launching. It's an MBA in Accounting and Finance, if I got that correct, Nihar?
Absolutely.
Right? And with us is Shubhra Bhattacharya of KPMG, and he's here because this entire course is going to be a joint venture between KPMG and IILM. And we have here two stars, Shubhra Bhattacharya, of course, and our very own star, Nihar Amonkar. And Nihar, let me take it from the point of view of a student. Why should I take this course?
Well, pretty much because the reason why we tied up with KPMG, I'll start with that, is because the world of finance is undergoing a lot of change. I mean, that's a very consistent statement to make because everything changes all the time. But we are seeing more changes happen now than ever so in the last, let's say, after liberalization of the economy, right? So what are these changes? One is, Subhra is going to talk about this in much more detail, is that the automation of the entry-level jobs, right, post-MBA in accounting, etc. The second is the emergence of entrepreneurial finance, right, with the explosion in terms of startups within the country and how they look at accounting and finance application is quite different, right, to traditional corporates. The third is that we really see that new emerging industries in India, one example being the GCC, which has huge potential to grow over the next 10-15 years and create a lot of employment. They require a very specific set of skills that MBA grads need to have.
For a lay student, to just explain what you mean, GCC, just break it up and tell us what would that be.
So this is like, you can say, a BPO 2.0. They are not like a BPO, right? They are not, but a lot of people call it a BPO 2.0 because of what they do. So they are global capability centers or competency centers, as you call them, and they do a lot of the critical back-end tasks for corporations. So for example, you talk about the Barclays of the world or the American Express. They have their GCCs in India and they employ people who have a great level of conceptual knowledge, let's say within the area of finance or accounting. So I think fund accounting is something that Subhra mentioned. So you need to be very sound in your concepts. So this is not just someone clicking a button. This is a person who understands it from a conceptual point of view, can interpret information and can help the management take decisions, right? So this is a huge industry that is coming up. And I think that requires very specific skill sets, which this program aims to address.
Okay, great. Let me come to you, Shubhra. Sure. How does, standard accounting, and I know there are many, I come from a kind of a, stock market valuation kind of background, and a lot of times we look at standard accounting and say that we don't need to know this at all. Right? And some of the account valuation gurus like Ashwath Damodar and kind of poo-poo it and says that this is called all wrong. But people need to learn it. And a lot of our students come wanting to learn it. They come from an accounts background. But as Nihar was pointing out, things are changing. Sure. So how does KPMG see it, and how do you think of imparting that knowledge to students?
Sure. I'm glad that, we are still relevant in the world, given, and we have been, and my view is we will be. So it's how you just, how the world is changing and how the accountants fit in. I think that's the key bit. So, like Nihar mentioned, transactional processing and all the other data entry jobs, the debits and the credits, that's taken care of now. That's taken care of now, especially with the advent of AI and digitalization, which has been happening for a few years. It's not just now. Versions of AI have been in play for a while. So accountants are already molding into it. You are now people who are contributors to the business. You're actually using your accounting and finance skills to actually make a difference to the business and to the world. You're not just someone sitting there and saying this is the end game, that this is the debit and the credit. It's more like, yeah, that's done, but so what? So I think that's the change, which is the mindset change, which has been happening and will continue to happen in the future, because finance and accounting, in the end, you still need us to make sure that the accounts are true and fair. But the professions within...
And also not get a tax
and not get a tax bill at the end. And that's when we will still be relevant. And effectively, Nihar briefly mentioned some areas which are which have come up of late, in terms of fund accounting, US taxation, where there are a lot of jobs in the market where large MNCs, not just US MNCs, but also Australian MNCs, the likes of NAB, National Australia Bank, Macquarie, they've all set up their global capability centers around the north of India, plus all the Bangalore ones as well. And those capability centers are no longer transaction processing centers. They are centers where the people here are adding value to all the accounting and finance which is happening for those enterprises globally.
I would like you to break it up this part a little bit more. Like, let's say if there's a student out there who's not everyone goes to an MBA with necessarily a business background. I mean, everyone wants an MBA. They might be engineers right now. Some of them might not know accounts at all.
Sure.
Now, what is that job exactly? You said that the processing part is over.
Sure.
Those things are now, I guess, AI driven, right? They've got automated, even if it's not AI, probably automated even earlier. Right? What jobs are these that you're talking about?
Sure.
If you had to describe what a person going into this office would be doing.
Yeah. So we will not, so I'll break this question into two parts. So one, you spoke about engineers. So we are not going to let the poor engineers, just throw them into the water and say you solve these problems. We will teach them basics of finance and accounting as well, whatever is necessary. So we will still, in our fundamentals of accounting, we will teach them the basics and then we'll build on it. So when I say build on it, those are the skills which will be built on, where in those jobs you have the accounts in front of you effectively to an extent. Your transactions are done. You have the numbers there. But what do you interpret out of the numbers? So you do your analysis to make sure that the financial statements make sense. When the tax office comes to visit, are you covered? Do you have the knowledge? So the AI has done all its stuff and you've got something in your hands. But does the numbers make sense? Do the numbers make sense? The analysis of the numbers, why, asking the why has this happened, to actually case studies which will be very live in terms of frauds, for example, which have happened in the past. So what happened in that fraud? Why did that fraud happen? So your mind is working to make sure as a custodian in the future of accounts or finance, when you have such a situation, you know how to deal with it. So that's an example where you're more of adding value to an organization rather than just sitting back and crunching the numbers and saying, oh, this is what happened and this is the end result. It's not that, that's fine. What else?
So we'll be jumping around a little bit, apparently podcasts are supposed to be like that. We have to be stream of consciousness. Yes. I want to say that, many people who are probably watching here, young people, and even in our classes, you would have experienced it. They say, how do I do a startup? How do I launch a startup, right? And many times that traditional accounting teaches you how to value a company based on, in some ways, a past record. And most startups today don't have any record. They don't make any money, right? So how will that be dealt with? How do you, I see Shubhra is disagreeing with me already. How do you deal with that? How would you teach students who want to go for and this is an actual question. Yes. A student asked me in the BBA program that should I do an MBA? How will it help me if I want to do a startup? How does it help in learning how to finance? Because this is just not accounting, there's finance also. So how will this course help?
So I think this is a very pertinent question that you've asked. Something that I come at it from a different angle, because I looked at family businesses in India during my PhD days, right? And a lot of them were traditional business communities, the Marwadis, right? And they have a very nuanced way of accounting, right? So
the Partha system and all.
The Partha system and this ability to get daily accounts, right, statement, and over long distances wherein transport was not done. So they understood the fundamentals of accounting very well, right? So it was always about, okay, what's the bottom line, right? So a lot of that is lost because of that apprenticeship training that used to happen in families. It is not happening anymore. So these guys are coming onto our campuses. Now it is up to us to sort of tell them that, you know what, You might diss your family for being archaic in their way of thinking, but it's not. Everything flows from there. Now, how it does? When we say accounting and finance, firstly, they need to understand the difference between the two. Accounting is about retrieving data and preparing statements. Then finance is about how you apply it, correct? Now, once you understand this fundamental difference, you have to understand that as an MBA, what it gives you is that it gives you a sense of how business works. So let's say from a chartered accountant, right, who is a purist, a MBA in finance is going to have an understanding of how what I do as an accountant or a financial analyst applies into my business. So how do I grow my business using these instruments of accounting and finance? I'll give you a simple example. I ask my students sometimes, look, I'm a strategy guy. I know nothing about finance and accounting the way probably Shubhra and you know. I asked them a question. I said, why is it that a company like Apple, who has got, what, $200 billion in cash, right? Why does it operate on debt, right? So why does this happen? I ask these open-ended questions. I ask them, why is it that Amazon could fund its grocery business entirely from cash, right? How did they do it? And why is it that Warren Buffett looks at free cash flow more importantly than anything else? And which is what our startups, a lot of them don't have, correct? So that is when they step back and understand that, okay, accounting and finance is much more than doing a particular task. I need to understand how the nerve system of the business works. How is it that I can support, let's say, the CEO or the strategy officer or the technology officer to use me as a person to sound off their ideas and then launch into a strategy. So that's what an MBA does, because it teaches you about strategic management, it teaches you about marketing, it teaches you about people management, and you sort of then tie these concepts into how do I use my money to enhance these functions, right? So you are an enabler to the business growth, and you, to me, you're the core, of the business. The finance and accounting department is the core. So I think this is something that students need to understand. So when it comes to startups, a lot of these people think that a startup is something that happened now in India. I'm sorry, but businesses that happened 50 years ago were also startups. In fact, your parents and your grandparents were facing even more resource constraints. Capital was scarce, right? And the country was, running in terms of a license Raj, if you can call it that. So free enterprise was not there. So you need to understand that a startup is no different to your family business, right? So the principles of how you run a startup and family business are the same. That does not change. What you do understand in terms of startup is that the instruments of capital have changed. You have the private equity, you have the venture capitalists, angel investing. But ठीक है, आपको सब समझ में आ जाएगा. But finally, all of these guys will trust you with their penny only when you have a sound grounding in business. And that's what this program aims to do.
Sure, bro.
Sure. I'll just add a few things to what Nihar said. He's covered most of it. I think beyond that, we'll also give, at KPMG, we've also got a private enterprise business which deals with a lot of these startups and help them grow. So what we do here is we bring that experience to the students in terms of how we've helped our, the startups which are now unicorns and soonicorns. How have we helped them grow? So there's a journey, whereas whether you like it or not, there's a lot of regulatory compliance around that. It's also what is out there for the startups. A lot of brilliant minds don't know how to access capital, where to go, how do I go about it, what are the steps, we will guide them through case studies and projects designed so that when they have these brilliant ideas, and I have been so surprised with students of late when I interact with them across various institutes, how more knowledgeable they are at that age than what I was. So they know it. What they need a lot is just guidance along the way. So to your point, Nihar, I went to college in St. Xavier's in Kolkata, and I'm very proud of that. In BCom, the people in BCom, they would finish the morning course, and like you said, the rest of the day would be at their father's shops in Bada Bazaar, learning business. Now it's not happening. It's not happening because it's not cool to do so. But there were some skills you learned there which actually helped you. So yes, the basic accounting skills which, which they inculcated there, but also where do we come in? we take their ideas, we inculcate those skills. So what were the steps which they had, taken? What were the learnings as well along the way? So we will share all of that so that if they have such ideas, whether it's running a family business in a different sphere or just a new tech startup, which they have in their mind. So, they will have access to our years of experience on what were the learnings, what do you need to ensure you've done. To your point, they have no accounts. So, but you will need to prepare the accounts if you need Series A funding, if you need other things, because the investors won't give that to you otherwise. The private equity firms and all that. So that's what we want to do. We want to give them an immersive experience. In my view, accounting and finance come together whether you agree is a different point, but they do come together.
No, I do. I absolutely agree with your point. Yeah.
They come together in a very, in a seamless way, and especially when you're running a business overall, it's not about accounting or finance. In the end, your business needs to grow.
Let's talk about this. Nowadays, what's really sexy is green finance, right? Now, AI works on archival data, what it finds out there on the internet, right? Green finance is yet to happen. I mean, they talked about it, but we are still not able to crack the code, how exactly this is going to work. So that is where the human mind and intuition and creativity is important.
With support from AI.
Exactly.
Like, for instance, you were talking about the classroom, and one of the things that I've told the students this year, that in the next semester, we are going to ask a question which is going to be very tough. And you have to answer that, and that's going to be a midterm exam using AI. Right? You use AI completely, but the question is going to be really tough for you to answer, because the assumption has to be that if you were using your own brain, then there are certain compute limitations. With AI, you have more compute available, so you'd better answer a much tougher question than we would ask. So we can come back to that. One of the things which AI does is that it's causing anxiety amongst young people. Right? Are we going to have this job? And I'm including myself in young people here. One of the things that a lot of these new influencers are talking about, the billionaire influencers, like I'm never able to pronounce his first name, but his last name, but his first name is Chamath. Right? He's a great influencer nowadays, right? And many of them now talk about the single person billionaire, a person who's going to be. Now, I think that would require a lot of knowledge about finance and how to raise funds, use it, and track it, right? Would this be something that you would look at? That I'm just an individual, right? Maybe I'll use AI, maybe I'll use bots, maybe I'll hire people on Upwork when I need them. How would you deal with such a person?
Very interesting. So I think I alluded to this a little bit earlier. Now I'll just, on the AI front, I'll just add that AI will reduce human error, but doesn't reduce humans totally. Yes, operating costs will go down, but humans are still needed. So I'll be very, I'll absolutely be very, that's my view of this. Now, around the question around finance and how this, if you take a step back a couple of years ago, startups were still doing the same thing. Yes, AI is helping them becoming, they don't have to go to a consultant or a chartered accountant or something for everything, which actually means they focus their attention on the more important things. So in this course, we have modules on corporate finance and valuation, where we actually take them through proper startup valuations and how do you do it, what has happened, what have you done. So for this individual to become that 1 billionaire based on this single person billionaire, he will get tools if he or she wants to take it up. We will encourage that, in fact, that entrepreneurial mindset where they challenge.
And this course is open to people who are more than 50 years old? But, you started off by saying that why does a company which has so much cash still use debt? And this is an interesting thing, because in my class I was teaching students about the cost of funds, right? Cost of equity, cost of debt. And one of my students came to me and said that, can you help me work out the cost of debt for us and our cost of equity? Should we take debt in our family business. Because he for the first time thought, oh, maybe I thought that equity is cheaper, but it might not be, right? And there's a great thing, and I think that is something that would be so interesting from learning from a KPMG.
You have got it spot on.
Yeah.
So that's the rationale for collaborating, right? Because we want to make finance and accounting subjects in an MBA program interesting. And how is it that you do that? One is you use AI tools, right? But the second is that you bring practitioners in. Now, what do they do? It's not just about somebody coming in and telling you stories. It's about them bringing in some data which they have used on their past case studies, and rather than using, let's say, a Harvard case study which has been analyzed God knows 1,000 times and everybody knows the answer to it, you bring in, let's say, a small medium enterprise business ka case study, and you say, let's open it up, right? So it's unique, it's contextual, it's not out there, so you can't plagiarize, so you have to apply your mind. And the practitioner is then there to sort of tell you the real-time consequences of it, right? So the what am I knowing in terms of the frameworks, and why do I need to know that? The application. That now happens simultaneously in a classroom. So that's the magic, right? So finance is best understood when you apply it, right? I mean, I read a book on mergers and acquisitions when there was strategy. But when I actually sat through one of my friends doing a merger and I understood how discounted cash flow and all those things are used, that's when I understood, okay, this is how it works, right? So if somebody does that in a classroom with you, I think that's the best way you can learn. And as he said, they are not just going to come there and teach you high-level concepts, right from fundamentals of auditing and accounting to corporate finance to financial modeling and valuation. The entire journey of 210 hours is going to happen through KPMG, which then finishes off with a capstone project, right? So we do test you periodically, and there is continuous evaluation. So this is not just going to be about writing exams and regurgitating, okay, how many ratios do I know? You know, but this is about, I'm giving you a business problem, can you solve it? If you can do that, then I don't need to worry about whether you will get a job or not. You will. You will.
Just to add a couple of things. So, for example, your question, your student's question on cost of debt, cost of equity, and how, debt can be cheaper. So, in a lot of our, and thanks for saying that, we are practitioners, we're not professors, we don't claim to be. So, in the course, when we teach, we try to tell them, so what? So, so debt, equity, which is cheaper, what are the positives and the negatives on either side, so that you make an educated decision as to, given your circumstance, what should you do? So, should you go with a hybrid cost debt equity model, or should you go for debt because it's cheaper, quicker, you but it can have after tax impacts, so that the accounting side of things of that, why should you go with that, or equity, what does that mean?
And the great thing about raising equity is that if you don't earn anything, you can tell your equity, sorry.
Exactly.
But debt is you have to pay.
Debt you have to pay. You've got the thing. So that's the flip side. So we approach our discussions and our case studies actually through that. Is what do we, when we have such a situation with our clients, the real stuff, what do you do? There's another point around Nihar's, he mentioned that we bring in live day, not live, but not live, but closed cases where data and all that. What is surprising is, and we use various tools as part of the thing, like for example, Excel, Power BI for some of the, Python for some of the modeling, etc., financial modeling. That's also a big job of the future. Modelers, they're really needed. So it's what do you need to know? It's not like you learn the entire thing and there's half of it childhood, those calculus formulas, wherever I use them, nowhere. So what do you need to know?
I think, Nihar, you told me a great story about you memorizing all the ratios for your MBA, and then you went and saw that
they were just listed out. So this was when I was writing a financial analysis exam. So this was abroad, and I went there with my Indian mindset that okay, I need to remember all the ratios, and that's what was going on in my taxi ride to the exam center, right? And there you go, on top of the sheet is all the ratios. So this is exactly what we plan to do. Look, it's about that sweet spot between knowledge and skills. as a pure academic, I never compromise on knowledge.
Yes.
We need to know what we need to know, right? And MBA is, see, short-term courses that come out nowadays, they can give you, they are for short-term. But if you want to build on a long-term career, it's the MBA, it's the CFA, it's the CPA, it's the ACCA, right? So we are very conscious that we need to provide you knowledge that can help you build a career over the long term, that you can build upon future with short-term courses. But at the same time, you have the skills
You'll
that
be able
make
to
you
implement
relevant today.
In fact, I'll give one example from my life. I used to anchor stock market shows for a long time, and therefore I learned everything about how to look at a balance sheet and stuff, because we had to. But I really never understood till they told us to cut costs in our channel. And then I went around with a measuring tape and saying, we don't use this much, which has been put on our books. I don't use this, remove it. So that's when I actually learned what finance is.
Applied finance.
Yeah.
In fact, that's always the first thing on a CFO's agenda, right? Cut costs. Yeah, this is what you need to do. So yeah, that's actually an interesting idea for a potential case study on this course as well. You know, how do we actually give these kids who come in a thing, be a CFO, you've got this thing, let's see how you reduce your operating costs and costs. What do you do?
We do that. So, for example, our students run, they run the cafeteria, right? They run the incubation center. They run different events wherein they plan the budget, right? And they are in charge of the costs. So we tell them, okay, here's X amount of money. How creative can you get? So that's the kind of experiential bit that allows our students to really grasp these concepts in real time.
Okay, one final question that I want to focus on a little bit. But part A is, what is the future of consulting jobs? And second is, many people look at consulting as a career, not necessarily going into a corporate thing and working on it, right? And so how does this help if you want to actually be a consultant rather than...
Should I take that?
Yes, please do.
You're a consultant.
Yeah, you're a consultant. Because they want to do that so that they earn more than
more bucks,
Nihar
yeah.
and I do.
Of course.
Yeah. So the right person to answer. Yeah.
I think consulting is a very broad
Yeah.
word. So I think...
So let me refine that a little bit. Which part of consulting do you see having a greater feature today?
So, consulting is a broad area. So, to me, the definition of a consultant is you have to be knowledgeable enough in a certain area so that someone takes you seriously and pays you, not you, I mean the company, the big bucks. Whether you get it is a different question, right? So, in my view, the areas which we are focusing on in finance and accounting, I think you'll be a very good accounting consultant. You will be a very good operations consultant as well, because you'll be able to get roles in strategy offices, because you'll be knowing, like Nihar mentioned as well, you'll be knowing what you need to do to help a strategy office grow as well. Do the valuation, give the ideas, and how do you build the business, startups as well. So if you're, a lot of consulting firms have dedicated areas where they focus on family businesses. So I think that is also a very huge area. We will focus on that to an extent in this course as well. So yes, for me, those are the areas. And also, I will also say fund accounting, US taxation. So consultants in those very niche streams, forensic as well. Forensic as well, because why have we chosen that? Because there is a huge future now. Because, there's so much happening around, risk, cybersecurity, which is also another big thing. Whilst AI has come up, the risks of AI have increased in those areas. So we will also train people in certain areas where they can go and get their first jobs in finance, very niche areas, in consulting firms as well. They will be well taught in those areas.
And also, as you said, that advising startups, because I have this brilliant idea of an automated butter chicken maker. So you press a button, it will make it in 5 minutes. But I need funds for that. So maybe.
I'm sure some of our students can work it out. But one thing I would like to add is that, see, for consultants, we need expertise, right? So along with the program, we have given our students chance to specialize in certain courses. So for example, one consultant in finance that is very much in vogue is a person who understands the IBC, the bankruptcy code, right? Because and not only from the finance perspective, but also how do you work with resolution professionals then? The law keeps changing now, right? So now the consortium of creditors is given more bandwidth than right? So then how do you work with the NCLT and the appellate tribunal? So you need to understand the law side of things as well, and that's where the multidisciplinary aspect comes in. So Ananya, what are the MBA program is doing at IILM is that it offers you 4 credits of exploratory courses, wherein you can take up courses from law, media, communication, computer science, right? Now what it does is, suppose if I am specializing right in finance, let's say I've done my financial modeling, valuation, all of that, and then I do 4 credits of corporate law and bankruptcy code. Now suddenly I have a very unique set of skills that are not only required by corporates, but a lot of merger and acquisition activities happening at the SME level, right? So you're talking about 1,500 to 3,000, 5,000 crore companies, right? Really the backbone of the economy. That's where it is happening. You see it in hotels, you see it in a range of different businesses. That's where you can really plug into your expertise. So students also need to understand that while consulting is a great job to have, it's great to work for a KPMG, etc., right? But look, the money is also in the tier 2 level, right? And you need to be open to that, and that's where you can really grow fast as well, because you can prove yourself better, right? And you're not within a crowd, so you can stand out and then maybe get picked up at a KPMG at a much higher level, right? So I think we give them the right kind of exposure. So people like Shubhro will keep coming in and talking to them, telling them what's happening out there within the industry, how the tectonic shifts are taking place. So there is corporate engagement and there is corporate training, and that is the X factor.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm not going to thank Nihar because he is, as they say, ghar ki murgi. But thank you, Shubhro, for coming in and taking out time. It's been great talking to you.
A pleasure.
Thank you.
So you heard us right now, and I hope you're going to take the plunge and go and apply and enroll in this course, because this is going to be a really great course. Thank you so much again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.